In the framework of the General Assembly of the Inter-Parliamentary Union 132nd, the Inter-Parliamentary Union, in collaboration with UN Agency on Gender Equality and the Empowerment of Women, UN Women, organized a conference on the sidelines called Achieving the Vision of Beijing, the Views of Men. The conference stressed the importance of including gender equality in the development agenda after 2015.
If you have women in parliament, they know what are the problems of women, whether it's about violence, it's about reproductive health, whether it's about their children. They understand more because they have, by nature, it is in themselves. So if you have women parliamentarians, you can have parliamentarians that can understand the problems of almost 50% of their population. But I would like to say that men parliamentarians should also get involved in the women issues because they are the ones that can also bring the voice of women to the whole population.
After 20 years of implementation of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, one of the most comprehensive documents on gender equality and women's rights was adopted at the 4th World Conference on Women in Beijing, China in 1995. Many accomplishments has been achieved, but the proportion of women in politics remains low. 2015 is a milestone to recognize the agreements that have been achieved on gender equality and recommit to this issue in the future. Hello everyone, and you're watching Shane Vietnam on VTC10 Net Việt. 20 years have passed since the Beijing Platform for Action has been signed by different countries around the world on gender equality. Now, on the occasion of the 132nd IPU that recently been held in Vietnam, we want to share with you some of the highlight content agreements that have been agreed on by parliaments around the world about how to achieve the vision of Beijing and the views of men. Now, with this, we want to invite the guest speaker today, that is the representative of UN Women in Vietnam, Ms. Shoko Ishikawa. Thank you, Ms. Shoko Ishikawa, for joining us. On the 132nd IPU recently been held in Vietnam, UN Women in coordinations with the Inter-Parliamentary Union has organized the event with the name called Achieving the Visions of Beijing, the View of Men. So can you share with us the purpose of this event and what are the attendees that participating in discussions during the event?
As you may know, it's been 20 years since the 4th World Conference on Women took place in Beijing, and globally we've been reviewing with the UN member states what the progress has been in terms of advancement of women and gender equality. And within that context, particularly this time, we wanted to highlight what the role of men have been in trying to promote gender equality using Beijing Platform for Action, and particularly because it's an IPU event, we had a panel of parliamentarians that spoke about their experience being a male parliamentarian and trying to promote gender equality.
What are the main highlights topics that would be discussed during this talk?
Panelists highlighted, for example, that there is still quite a low number of women in parliaments. It was highlighted that globally currently there are only 22% of parliamentary seats that are occupied by women. So there was an acknowledgement from the male parliamentarians themselves that there needs to be more women in the parliament. Also the fact that there are still many biased policies and laws in many countries, and as parliamentarians, as lawmakers, as the people that have oversight over budgets, how important it is that males that are the majority of the parliamentarians at this time speak up in support of gender equality.
This marked the 20th years of Beijing Platform for Actions. So how has this platform become a motivation for each country to promote and commit towards the gender equality and women empowerment?
I think globally, and this comes from the UN Secretary General's report reviewing the 20 years of implementation of Beijing Platform for Action, globally there has been good progress made on girls' education, particularly basic education. I think in many countries around the world there is close to parity, meaning that boys and girls are equally enrolled in schools at the primary level. That is a huge accomplishment that there are. So in terms of maternal health, there have been progress made around the world. Economic participation of women, but the overall assessment of the Secretary General is that progress has been slow and there needs to be much more done. It was a very forward-looking agenda that was set 20 years ago, so it's quite comprehensive, and many countries have used it in terms of creating specific legislation to promote gender equality, developing their own national platforms for action for gender equality, and many progress has been made because it's been a globally agreed document by the member states. And so even in the context of Vietnam, the Vietnamese government has been very serious about promoting women's rights and equality, and you see that in the fact that the Vietnamese government has a gender equality law. It has also passed laws to prevent and control domestic violence, also anti-trafficking laws, and some recent changes in the labor law are also favorable to women who are in the labor force.
At the Fourth World Conference on Women, held in Beijing, China in 1995, 189 member states of the United Nations, including Vietnam, have jointly committed to the Beijing Platform for Action, including 12 strategic objectives to promote the empowerment and advancement of women worldwide. Particularly, goals related to women and poverty, education, health, violence, armed conflict, human rights, economic rights, etc. Vietnam has achieved encouraging results. According to the report by the government in parliament, the female literacy rate is 90.5%. The percentage of female students in schools and university, 55.32%. The positions of women in economic life is also improved. Typically, 90% of land use rights certificates are granted both for spouse and wife. Although the Beijing Platform for Action is not a mandatory document, but the IPU 132nd has once again reaffirmed the commitment of countries to promote gender equality, especially the role of men in the promotion and hands-on activity to empower women.
What are some outcomes and agreements that have been made during this event, and how do you think about the effectiveness of this event?
The general discussion reaffirmed that indeed men's role is important in the parliamentary debates. There was also a very strong endorsement of our He for She campaign that UN Women had started, and in fact IPU had introduced He for She last year in their previous assembly in Geneva. Therefore, there were some parliamentarians that already knew about the campaign and spoke about how they had used that campaign in their country to get more parliamentarians, male parliamentarians, to support progressive legislations and policy that promote gender equality, and also to create more space for women in decision making. I think it was very forward-looking and innovative in a sense, to try and have the male parliamentarians speak about gender equality, and a lot of the female parliamentarians echoed their appreciation for such an event, and said that there should be more such discussions in IPU around that. So I think it was a very good starting point that needs to be followed up in the future IPU sessions also.
In the previous show that UN Women also featured on, we have talked about the He for She projects, which is also one of the projects that encouraging men to take part more in empowering women and in gender equality. So how do you see the importance in holding events that empowering males parliament members to talk about the things about the gender equality and women empowerment?
Well, IPU traditionally has always been emphasizing gender equality and the empowerment of women. They in fact have always dedicated one day for a discussion of the women parliamentarians. I think the realization of IPU itself also has been that the women parliamentarians discussion has been among women parliamentarians alone, and therefore they need to move to more male engaging in those discussions also. And so that was the main purpose of why they had that side event, and I hope that IPU will keep on encouraging male parliamentarians to join their special meeting that they have on discussion around gender equality.
You have mentioned that all the member states have agreed that the speed of commitment for the Beijing Platform for Action has been slow. So what are the things that UN Women would recommend for the Vietnamese government in order to push forwards and to able to achieve the Beijing Platform for Action?
Because we're talking about the Interparliamentary Union, what Parliament, the National Assembly here right now could do in order to further accelerate implementation of Beijing Platform for Action, and that would be to institute a legal quota in the law on elections that are currently being discussed. There are debates about whether to specify a certain percentage of candidates that should be women in the next election, and from the United Nations we strongly encourage the National Assembly to take that on board, and now is the chance for the National Assembly to put that into law.
Recalling on the recent 132nd IPU that recently held by Vietnam, as the representative of UN Women in Vietnam, what are your impressions about the effort of Vietnam in organizing this event?
I would really say a huge congratulations to Vietnam, and I think this was echoed in the opening statement of the IPU president, that Vietnam has really set a high bar for other countries that will follow, because I could see that all efforts were made to make sure that the foreign guests were well treated, that they knew where they needed to go to, and everything was done really very well. So really congratulations.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shoko Ishikawa, for all of your sharing today, and I hope that you together with Vietnam will help Vietnam to achieve the Beijing Platform in coordinations with other countries' commitment. And that's the end for Sharing Vietnam today. Thank you so much for watching us. I hope that this event has shared with you some information that you would like to know about gender equality in Vietnam, as well as some of the agreements in the Beijing Platform for Actions that countries have signed 20 years ago. Any questions and recommendations, please email to sharingvietnam@netvittv.net. Thank you and see you again.